we should sort of work at a local level as well. I have met Susan one time before. We have met Dave Congo also, who's the lighting expert, as you guys know. But essentially, I want to just show you one product that we think is really taking root in terms of the project approach that we've taken for parking decks, which I know has been a pain for not only in Arbor, but lots of other cities. We've got some projects going in Chicago and working with some national real estate firms that own parking lots. We're meeting with Taubman next week as well. But essentially what we've done, and there's a slide in there that talks about this, we've taken the traditional approach, not only of tube lights, but also the LED fixtures that we've seen that are over in the Washington Street lot. And instead of concentrating the light, we've actually spread it out using our light bars. And Ted's got a sample. Yeah. But essentially, what we can do is we can take, for example, in the Williams and Main lot, or the lot in Williams, each fluorescent fixture has 3 tubes in there. So approximately 12 linear foot of lighting. We can take the same 12 foot, spread it out using our light bar approach, and actually get a much bigger bang for the buck, not only the quality of the light, but also in the ROI. So it solves environmental problems, it solves glare issues that we've heard complaints about, and it's cost effective as well. So, you know, I know there's not a lot of time, so I thought we'd just pitch one project. We also have some fantastic power lamps that are using next generation technology and really can equal the performance of halogen lighting and incandescent lighting. And that payback is very, very quick. So even in this bright light, you can see that, that we can outperform. Yeah, shut it in the eyes so that really figure it out. So just, I guess this was just a teaser. We don't have a lot of time. We just thought we'd share with you our capabilities. We're working with a lot of national firms across the country. But I think it's time to start working at a local level as well. That's our A19 60 watt replacement that actually puts out 800 lumens of light. And other than Philips, we're the only company that I'm aware of that's producing that level of lighting. But of course, we're much cheaper. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. We've got, like I said, tons of other products that will fit any lighting situation. We can be a single source lighting provider. We have our own manufacturing facility, unfortunately not in Michigan, but we're working to change that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Are these sites dimmable?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Just for you, where's your office?
On Main Street.
It's above Connor O'Neill's.
It's above Connor O'Neill's, yes. We did have a warehouse in Romulus, but we're looking to bring that to Ann Arbor.
Thanks very much.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to address us in our fourth position? Okay, well, thank you. Next, we will have reports from our city boards and commissions, and I'd like to invite Ray Detter from the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council. And Ray, you should know, you might want to, spiff up. The cameras are back on.
Oh, they are?
Yes. Look sharp.
Does he need it? Thank you. Members of the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council and a number of guests last night devoted the entire meeting to a discussion of the proposed varsity student housing development. That's the one proposed on East Washington Street, 13 stories, 147 units, 445 beds, 77 parking spaces. That's at 425 East Washington. And we feel that this is going to be a learning experience for all of us in terms of the nature of good design in Ann Arbor, something we haven't been able to talk about sometimes in the past. And tomorrow, July 7th at 6 o'clock, there will be a required citizens participation meeting at Sloan Plaza. Everyone's invited to that. You can make your comments based upon a presentation that they will do at that time. As some of you know, over a week ago, the newly appointed Design Review Board provided suggestions for improvement about the design features of this varsity proposal based on the downtown design guidelines that were recently adopted as part of the A2D2. The CAC agrees with the suggestions of that design review board. We're not against the project, but we feel it can be improved a lot, and they made some specific suggestions that we think should be followed. This project, as it is right now, has a long way to go with regard to the nature of conforming to the, I shouldn't use that word conforming, of voluntarily supporting the design guidelines by making improvements in their building. And we support, by the way, going higher if they want to, because right now they're at 143 feet, they can go to 180. If they can improve the design and go higher, that would suit us just fine. But right now, the design has some real problems. Our group, by the way, supported Zaragoza 2. I mean, I appeared before Planning Commission and also before City Council to support Zaragoza 2 because Zaragoza 2, even though it didn't have to, took the design guidelines as they were emerging and built a building that conformed to those. And all of us, there was no opposition almost to Zaragoza 2. In this case, they didn't even know about the nature of the design guidelines before they started making their drawings for Washington Street. And fortunately, they have hired someone, a local architect, to find out what the neighbors think about this. And of course, we'll have the public participation meeting, which will then make it even better. The first principle, really, of those design guidelines is what's the first statement says: it asks developers to identify and then reinforce the positive characteristics of the adjacent sites. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. If you go to take a look at the nature of their design at this particular point, they've got a 13-story building rising up 15 feet from the sidewalk on the Huron Street side, which shows little consideration with regard to the churches to the east and also to the two historic houses to the west. And we think that that can be handled. But also, as a part of that, they have some serious problems. They have two parking garages in this building. One comes from Washington Street, one comes from Huron Street, and both of them at this particular point pose problems with regard to pedestrian safety and also for traffic safety in the area. Some people would advocate perhaps combining those two parking structures and having one entrance. That's a possibility. But that facade on the north at this particular point is just 13 stories straight up without anything really to speak in favor of in terms of the nature of its design. The east side of the building is equally difficult in terms of its nature, because what you have is one of the longest blocks between here, Washington Street and Huron. It's one solid, as one design person on the board said, slab. Bland, another one called it. One person outside of that design review referred to it as a tsunami of an uninteresting brick. It has no top, it has no bottom, and it simply represents something which is totally in conflict with our expectations with regard to the nature of a good design. And it can be improved. It can be improved by reshaping that building and perhaps, as I suggested, going higher. To its credit, the developers have started consulting with stakeholders. They came to a number of people, including the churches next door, to ask them what they wanted. And they've added now a walkway to the east. At this particular point, it's only 5 feet, but that walkway we hope will be extended in the future so that not only will be on this site, but also extend over to Liberty Street by joining at the alley next to Tally Hall. We've already met with the mayor on that one, hoping to move that forward at this we think, opportune time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I would note, too, that in speaking about the Design Guideline Review Board, that I believe City Council last night passed a fee for the design review, which is going to be $500. I think staff had recommended $1,000, which seemed like a lot, but I'm very glad that that was reduced to $500, which will encourage people to go before the design review board. Next is a presentation from Get Downtown and Go Passes. And John, would you introduce Nancy, please?
Yeah, I want to tell people that at our last Transportation Committee, Nancy gave us a presentation about Get Downtown. And it's very informative. I think it's something that as we talk about the idea of getting the word out about not only the DDA, but an opportunity for Get Downtown, we also have the opportunity now that the Go Pass is swipeable to collect more information and understand better how it's used. And there are quite a few things that we talked about a year ago that have been starting to get instituted in the program. So a lot's been happening, and so we asked that Nancy come along and sort of present to everybody. And what I'd suggest is if once Nancy's finished, this may be a good time to ask questions about it. We can talk later under the Transportation Committee report, but as you have questions for Nancy, go ahead and do it as part of this.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, you might want to move out of the way, the presentation. So I'm here to talk to you today about maybe one of the best kept secrets the DDA undergoes every single year, It is a economic tool and a transportation benefit all at once, and it slices and dices and makes julienne fries. Actually, it doesn't, but it is the Go Pass. And what was really interesting is actually all of the people that presented to you today, every one of their businesses participates in the Go Pass program, and pretty much every business that sits on this board participates in the Go Pass program. So this is something that the DDA is actually pretty much solely responsible for. The Get Downtown program administers the Go Pass, but the DDA is a huge funding partner. So I really wanted to share with you some interesting data that we recently collected about the Go Pass, and just to give you, again, a sense that this is something that you guys own. This is your pass, and I want to make sure that you know everything about it that you can, and also ask any questions that you have about it. So let us move forward. So first of all, just reiterating what the Get Downtown program is, we really are made up of our partners. Our funding partners are the DDA, the RIDE, the Ann Arbor Transportation Authority, and the City of Ann Arbor. And that is really what makes us who we are. And when we go and talk to downtown businesses, we make sure that they know that these are one of our partners, and that if they have any questions for those entities, we're always happy to work with them. And also that we just are always working in partnership with the different funding entities. So just really want to reiterate that for everybody. So, technical difficulties. So what is the Get Downtown program? Well, we obviously do the Go Pass, but we do a lot more. We have bike lockers that we rent out. We help manage the zip car program downtown. We provide commuting information to downtown Ann Arbor employees. We do all sorts of online resources. And we do fun events like Bike to Work Day, where somebody actually this year wore a suit and tie and some bike shorts, which I thought was very appropriate. That's a Google employee. So we do a lot for commuting in downtown Ann Arbor, and we really also try to support the DDA in your efforts to manage parking demand, because we're here to help target employees and make sure that they know all the different commuting options that they have. This does not want to work with me. Do you want me to just... Aha! Woo! There you go. So, what you guys want to know about the Go Pass today? I've got a little bit about what I want to cover, but are there any burning questions that you want to make sure that before this presentation is over you have answered, or at least I try to answer? Yes, Roger.
Do we know how many of the passes are actually used?
That is
and
in this.
What number of rides?
Yes.
Each pass is, or I mean,
like average pass per ride?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that information. It's not in here, but I can
okay.
give you the information. Average rides per pass. I can give you a rough estimate. I do have that though in a spreadsheet form that I could send you to.
Okay.
Anything else? Burning question you want to make sure? Okay, well, we'll see if we answer those questions. So first of all, this is actually as interactive as I'm going to try to be, so that you can help me, because this is your pass and I want you to take ownership over it. So what is the Go Pass? For some of you that are actually purchasing them for your employers, what is it? What does it do? What is it, just basically?
Allows employees to take the ride anytime, anywhere, just by showing the pass.
Yep, unlimited rides on the AATA buses.
Night ride discounts.
Yep, we'll get more to that, but it's just basically unlimited rides on AATA buses and subsidized by the DDA, which is very important. So just want to know that is what pays for the majority of the pass. Actually, at this point, the DDA is contributing to about 96% of the overall cost of the Go Pass for employers.
Could you tell us how much that is?
Yes, currently the DDA pays $71 for, $68 for every $5 that the employer pays, which is $71. Obviously, my math is not good. That is coming up. I have a slide for that, just because I can't remember the number off the top of my head. Here it is. Aha, perfect.
Wonderful.
So this is the commitment that the DDA has had the last couple of years. If this were a year where I'd be coming for funding, I'd probably do a presentation very much like this, just to let you know a little bit about the past. But just so you know what you've committed for the next 3 years, this is it. And yes, this is a huge commitment, almost $500,000 to a program that helps all downtown employees and is really valuable for them. So hopefully I'll let you see a little bit more about that as we move on.
And Nancy,
Yeah.
have we turned on yet the tracking
Yep.
individual
So
passes?
swipeable pass, yes, and I'm gonna share some of the initial data from that. So now Keith was getting a little bit into the benefits. So he already said one, which is this night ride. It's a shared taxi service that employees with the Go Pass can use for $3 versus $5 that anybody else can pay. What other benefits does the Go Pass offer besides that and the unlimited rides? What else?
There are other discounts at participating retailers.
Yep. You have about 30 or so retailers downtown and restaurants provide discounts if you show your Go Pass.
Discounts from like the Chelsea.
Yep, there's two express services. There's a service from Canton and a service from Chelsea, and with the Go Pass you can get a 50% discount off of that, and that's also with the DDA grant. Anything else?
Made it easier for our team to win computer challenge.
The commuter challenge, there you go. I didn't have that on here, but that's also a good one. That if you had the Go Pass, it makes it a lot easier to encourage your employees to get to work, which we'll actually get to. So these are the benefits that the Go Pass offers. But now let's ask a more theoretical, philosophical question, which is why? Why do we even have the Go Pass? We have all these benefits. The DDA offers it. What's the reason? What does it do for downtown? What does it do for employees and employers?
Well, people ride buses, it's better than for the environment.
Yes, it's environmentally friendly.
Frees up parking.
It frees up parking, helps manage the parking demand. It's a TDM strategy for sure.
It helps perhaps change the narrative of what public transportation is, especially in a state that relies pretty heavily on an absence thereof. It lowers the bar.
It lowers the bar. It makes it more approachable for employees. Okay.
Especially for lots of the service industry folks who just could not afford to bring a car down every day and park downtown. It makes it possible for them to even work.
Yeah, so economic development, because it allows employees to work downtown. And it also, I know with my buys, there's been some employee retention that they have actually said the Go Pass has been huge for them being able to stay downtown. Great. Well, that's good. I just put some other ones out here. So huge incentive, economic development incentive, as well as transit incentive. It's a huge encourager. And the reason that we focus on employees is because of any of the people that are coming downtown. Employers are the ones that are having the most consistent patterns. So they're the ones that if you really want to make a difference in transportation patterns, you want to work on employees and you want to focus on employees. Did you want to say something else?
I just want to say, my bus does offer competitive wages.
Yes, that's a good thing.
They don't do the bus pass, but they can
They don't, but it provides a good benefit. It's another nice benefit.
I think it also makes people mobile that otherwise would not be able to move around.
There you go. Yes, there are actually, I know people that can't drive because of different disabilities, and they're able to get downtown very easily because of the bus.
Probably reduces accidents in the winter.
Yes, that's true too. I'm very much interested in doing that. So in terms of the history of the Go Pass, just so for some of you newer board members, it's been around since 1999. It actually started with a federal grant that allowed us to start the pilot program, but that money can no longer be used for Go Passes. So what happened was the DDA actually stepped up to the plate in 2000 and said, we're going to help subsidize this pass so we can make sure that it is able to be available for employers. And that's really the reason that it continues to this day, is because of the DDA's support. And so currently it's a $5 per employee copay for employers, and then the DDA provides the rest of that funding for each pass. So here's getting into some of the statistics now. Every single year we have seen an increase in the number of employers that have participated in the program. So this year, and this is just as of April. So this isn't even the end of the Go Pass year is October. And so just since April, we've had 503 participating organizations. So we thought at some point we'd see a plateau, but we continue to see more businesses participating in the program and new businesses as well. In terms of the number of Go Passes sold, again, this is since April. We're up to 7,100 passes sold, and that is higher than any other year that we've sold passes, period. Ridership has increased. This last year it actually has gone through the roof, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, but that's the very top number there is what's been happening in 2010, 2011. And ridership means every time that somebody goes on the bus and they swipe their Go Pass, that's a ridership. That counts as one ridership person. So every month we're averaging about 50,000 rides right now with Go Passes. So this is what Roger was asking. So how many unique passes are used every month? And right now we're averaging about 2,400 passes used every month. Out of that 7,000 that are purchased, every month we've got about 2,500 of them that are being used. So if that answers your question.
Are you able to track UVM over, or unique visitors over months to know which passes are being used more? Okay.
Yep, and we're going to I'll show you a little bit of that information. So now that I talked a little bit about the Go Pass in terms of how many users there are, how many users there are every month, the question is what type of employees, so what industries do you think use Go Passes the most?
I think I know that.
You think you know that one? Restaurant employees? Anybody else hazard a guess as to who uses the Go Pass the most, or what employers?
Public employers?
Maybe government employees? Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to show you. This is actually, now this is I kind of divided up the industries that purchase Go Passes. This is who we're selling them to. So this isn't actual use. This is who we're selling them to. So if you look at the top 3 employers that we're selling Go Passes to, we have the restaurants, government, and retail. So that's of those 7,000 passes, 26% of them are sold to restaurant, 10% government, and 7% retail. So who's actually using them then? So this is the ridership. So this is of those 300,000 rides from November to April. What is the breakdown of ridership? And as you can see, restaurants account for a pretty high proportion, but not 50%, 46% of the proportion. And then government employees would be the next highest, followed by retail. And so those are of all of the rides. But what's very interesting is if you look at the next one, this is of those about 2,500 people that are using a Go Pass every month. If you look at it this way, there's actually a lot of different people using the pass, maybe a little infrequently. Maybe somebody's using the pass 10 times a month rather than a huge proportion of the month, and they're actually in here. So if you break it down by number of users every month, or I guess through November to April, restaurant is still high, but then you actually have retail and government tied, and then we have this marketing, PR, and service firm. So that's your Googles, your MyBuys, people that are users that are not using it a lot, but are definitely still using the pass.
Would you think, like with Google going to offer zip cards, they're supplementing some of the, because restaurants and government, you kind of know your shift, you know your clock in, you're not necessarily jumping in your car, or if you are government, you might have a government vehicle. Do you think that affects the type?
I mean, it really depends on, if you're coming downtown and you have a zip card, then it's much more likely that you want to use the bus. I mean, that definitely is an incentive. And I'm not sure with Google employees where they're going during the day that they're using zip cards, but I know definitely for government employees and others who can get down here, it's a lot more likely they're going to want to do that if they have a Go Pass, because then they don't have to worry about getting their car. I mean, I do it all the time, but I'm not really a good example probably because I'm selling the program. So now another interesting statistic is frequency of use, and this is kind of that long tail phenomenon. This is of the, so far from November to April, we've had 3,361 passes used. So how many uses are each of those individual passes being used? And if you look at kind of the middle of that, I want to give you like an average use. If you're say you're a full-time employee working maybe 20 days out of the month, from November to April, that would be about 120 uses, and that's roughly in the middle of this chart. And so we have maybe about half of those people using the pass, using it a lot more, probably more like restaurant workers, like Keith's employees, that are probably coming downtown more than just those 20 days. And then we have people that are maybe using the pass once or twice over the course of a month. So we have some people that maybe their car breaks down, maybe they're just not interested in taking their car because of the snow, they want to be able to take the bus. We have people like that as well. So we do have some higher users, a lot of middle ground users, and then a fair amount of people that are just using the pass only rarely. So to conclude our presentation, I want to share a little bit about what we feel like are the goals of the program and how the Go Pass is impacting those goals. First of all, we really want to encourage employees to use those different transportation options because they are available. And we're seeing increased use of the pass. We have evaluation surveys that are showing that employees who use the Go Pass are using the bus more. It sometimes causes them to look at other options besides driving, which we think is positive. Obviously, for employers, it provides them with a low-cost, high-value transportation incentive. And again, we have a lot of employers that tell us time and time again, this is a huge incentive for me because I can't necessarily offer parking, or even if I can, which a lot of employers do, I can also offer another transportation benefit that some of my employees would really like to take advantage of. And finally, we really think that Go Pass, and we've seen, as an economic development tool. We have all the buses coming downtown. We have a lot of employees these days that have employees that are young, that want to use different types of transportation to get to work, that want to be able to bike sometimes, but the weather's not good, they want to be able to use the bus. And the Go Pass really offers them something that is a good sell for downtown. And again, with the DDA, the Get Downtown program, one of our huge goals is we want to create a strong and vibrant downtown, and we know that the Go Pass does that because we know that when employers move downtown, they're almost giving us the call the minute that they open their doors, or even beforehand. They're getting Go Passes because they know how valuable they are for their employees. So I got a couple more things to tell you, which is that we had an insane year this year with GoPass use. The increase in ridership has been 29%, which is much, much higher than AETA ridership overall, as well as increases in other sponsored passes. So we are seeing an insane amount of growth. And again, I don't know all the reasons. One of the things that we do know, though, is that this increase is related both to more people using the passes and the people that already have passes using them more. So it's not just the same old people using the passes more. We're actually getting new people using passes. And so we're seeing frequency. Maybe the reasoning is because of the economy. Maybe it's because there's more restaurants downtown. I mean, I don't have all the reasons. Maybe you guys can think of some, but it's exciting to see how successful we've been, and we've actually been so successful that we've used up all the DDA grant for this year, and so that's kind of amazing. I haven't really done that very much before. So some of the changes coming in 2011, 2012. So the GoPass has been $5 since 1999, while the cost of gas has increased and parking has increased and almost everything else you can think of has increased at least a little bit. So we are going to provide an increase for the GoPass at $10 per employee. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because we feel like it is such a valuable pass. I think we want to make sure that employers understand the value of it. And because we recognize in these times we want to make sure that we have money to make sure that the program continues to be sustainable. We're also doing a lot of different measures to increase employer contact and responsibility. So we're putting together a handbook so every employer knows all the policies and procedures of the pass. We're making sure that now we have the passes that are swipeable, we can actually turn them off. So if an employee leaves an organization, they do not continue to use the pass, and because we want to make sure that the passes are only being used by the people that should. So that is my presentation about the wonderful GoPass that you guys provide funding for. Any other questions you have about that? Yes, Gary?
Can you attribute the increase in employer participation to any specific marketing effort or annual marketing effort? Or is this really word of mouth? Or
I think some of it is word of mouth. You know, I wish I could say that we did this crazy blitz ad campaign this year, but a lot of it is that the GoPass sells itself. And some of it is also that there are employers downtown that are looking at other things they can do to offer a benefit to their employees because maybe they can't offer other benefits for their employees. And so maybe they've stopped offering parking or they're interested in doing something else for their employees. But I think a lot of it is also word of mouth. I think the more people that participate in the program, the more they see the value in it, and then they tell their friends or they tell the people that are moving in, and it becomes something that's more valuable for others. Yes, Roger.
So of the roughly 7,000 passes are given out, about 2,500 are used on a regular basis?
Right, on a monthly basis, and about 3,500 have been used so far.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any way of finding out of those roughly 2,500 what percentage own cars and what percentage don't own cars?
You know, we're going to do our evaluation this year, and that is one of the questions that we ask, so we can look at people that have Go Passes, how many own cars and how many don't. We can definitely get that information for you.
That would be good to know.
Sure. Okay. Great. Lee?
I just want to say that when we first started this program, it, went off in fits and starts, and when Nancy got on board, it soared. You did the marketing personally, I think, to just about every business in the downtown, and they now realize the value of this. When you ask a question about cars, ask them if they have one car or two cars in the family, because I would have an idea that maybe this can reduce people's ownership of a second car.
Okay, great.
What do you think we'll have enough data to make suggestions on a kind of use it or lose it policy? And kind of the associated question is, are participation or subsidy for the pass tied to the volume in terms of that subsidy? I mean, the more we buy, the cheaper it get for us. I mean, it's great that we're tracking the data now, but obviously if you're losing essentially if you're using half of our grant to buy passes or to subsidize passes that aren't being used in some level of frequency, I kind of would rather you have that money to do something else, or I'd kind of like to have that money back so we can do something else, hopefully to help you in some other way.
And the way that the passes are actually priced is based on the number of boardings. It isn't necessarily based on each individual pass. So because there's actually so many more boardings of the 29%, you've actually exhausted the whole entire grant. So there isn't actually any extra money, and it's almost like health insurance, where you have a whole pool of people putting in the same amount of money. Some of them are using it more frequently, some of them might not be using it at all. you're still paying the same amount. So there isn't any money.
If you sell another
specifically.
1,000 passes, it doesn't necessarily cost us more money.
Right.
It's just over.
Right, and your amount is capped. You guys have given a certain amount, and the DDA, the ADTA has accepted that amount as what's going to be for the Go passes for this year. But that still that doesn't mean we can't look at the data, and if there wants to be some more strategizing about increasing the effectiveness of the pass or any other metrics, because now that we have this data, we can look at. Are there things that we can do to improve the success of the program? I'm happy to continue to do that.
Yeah, just as long as we're not spending money on people that aren't using it, that couldn't.
Not
spend
at all.
it.
Not at all.
John?
One of the reasons I thought it would be good for Nancy to talk to everyone here today too was that notion that with doing a questionnaire, it's an opportunity to find out what people think about things, and those folks that are on Bricks and Money Committee or Economic Development Communications, there may be different ways to look at data that can be collected, either from swipeable pass or from questionnaires and so forth. So one of the things I would hope to do would be to encourage folks that are on the other committees to look at Nancy as a resource for our entire organization in terms of the how to communicate with the public. And one of the things as an example too, in your handout where you saw that little piece about the Go Pass overview, I asked Nancy that I want to give it to Watts, the organization that I'm on behalf of the DDA, which is representing Washington Area Transportation. I asked her to give me a copy of that to disperse to those folks, including putting her letterhead on it, DDA logo, that sort of thing. So I think that just as we look forward to communicating and sort of being out out there a little bit more, I just would encourage people, if you think of the things that you'd like to have asked in questionnaires or in data from what's swipeable, this is a great connection to the community out there.
A couple of comments. By the way, the cameras were working for your presentation.
I know. That's great.
So that
More
was
people,
great.
the better.
It was caught, exactly. But a couple of things, this program won an international award from the International Cities for Local Environmental Initiatives a few years ago, and it sounds like you might want to apply again. I don't know if you even applied last time. I think they might have just noticed it. But it is a pretty innovative program. It was mentioned about making it possible for a family to only have one car, perhaps. And if you look at the entire spectrum of transportation options in the community, this is a really important one. It gets people into the center, it gets them back to where they're going. But that has been, I think, one of the thrusts, to make it so that the young family has one car instead of two, and maybe the person who doesn't want to have an automobile at all can just live in Ann Arbor. Particularly when we're able to add rail transit to that, it's going to make a tremendous difference. So the idea of the whole thrust of it, I think, comes down to also being able to help people on the affordable housing side. Because if you take a car out of the budget, you've added about $500 into a family's budget for each automobile per month, and that's a significant figure. And it allows people to have some more options in how they're spending their money and where they live and how that moves down. So it's a vital program. I'm really happy to hear how well it's doing. I don't know of when I go to meetings with other mayors and things, I just don't know of other cities that are moving to the degree that we are in Ann Arbor to make it possible for people to live without their automobile.
Keith, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think another interesting thing I'd like to find out would be, are there people who use the Go Passes who have never used the ride before? And this speaks a little bit to that idea of the half of them that aren't being used. One of the great things about the unused passes is it gets them in their wallet, and that time when they suddenly decide, I'm going to try this, they have it.
Since about half the people that get the Go Pass don't use it, and about a third of the people who have the Go Pass use it actively, it seems that a larger charge to the consumer would be warranted, and that it would discourage people who take the pass but don't use it. But those who use it clearly see the value of it, and I just wondered if there was any thoughts in terms of the pricing, even if you quadrupled the price to $20, the savings, if you use it regularly, is returned in a week.
Right, and we are increasing the price this next year to $10, which is, 100% increase.
Right.
Yes, it's from and it's per employee. It's not just for the people that use it, but it's every employee.
Right.
But that might discourage companies like ours, which has 80 employees and probably 30 of them using it. Our costs just went from, $400 to $800, not on the 30 that are using it. So if we could go direct to consumer, I agree. But I don't want to knock an employer out that has good numbers, because we couldn't afford it at MyBuys if it was $40 a person, because over however many employees we'll have next year, it's just too much.
Exactly. Part of the success of the program is that you have to get it for all full-time
Right.
employees.
Right.
And if only 20% of your employees use it, then and it goes up that much, you're just going to say, okay, I can't afford to do it. But we lose that 20% then, and the possibility for the other 80% to actually start using it.
Congratulations on the great success. That's terrific. That being said, with the high level of non-user quality to it, there may be a way to create a pricing structure that both adds value to that employee. So, if an employee pays $10 and sees a huge benefit from it, then, anyway, it does seem that pricing strategies, I think, could actually be used to enhance and create a greater use of them, because.
Yeah, and then the nice thing is that the people that determine that price are the DDA, the AATA, and the city to some extent. So I think that all of us coming together, especially as it's becoming more successful and swipeable, maybe we can look at some different pricing schemes, because it's been pretty static in terms of how it's been priced for the last 10 years. Okay, great. Gary?
If we're wildly successful and we get everybody to actually use it, since our numbers are capped, how is that going to affect AATA? Would that be like a catastrophic success type thing, or?
Currently their proposal to their board is that the money that the DDA has allocated is what they're getting, and they seem comfortable with that. There's actually at one of their committee meetings in July, they're gonna discuss this, because this is a little different than it has been done. We had actually had the passes be priced on a per boarding basis, but if we had done that, we actually would have to come back and ask the DDA for more money, and we know that that's not going to happen. So this is kind of a new normal, and so I think that the DDA and the AT are also going to have to figure out what happens is if and when the program gets more successful, how to deal with that in the future. And that's in some ways why we're also trying to increase the price on the other end, so that maybe we can have a little bit of wiggle room for the DDA grant.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thanks very much. And I think this is really good evidence of how the DDA works in partnership with other authorities. Here we're working with the AATA. We're helping them. They're helping the downtown, and it's really a perfect union. Next, we have DDA business. This is to cancel the DDA August meeting. We ordinarily do this, and so I am wondering if we have a motion to do it.
I will move that we cancel the August meeting.
Okay, is there a second? All right, any discussion on canceling the August meeting? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, our August meeting will be canceled, as usual, I would say. It's not a new thing. Next on our agenda is the status of any task force efforts, and we don't have any current task forces. We're once again happy about that. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes. First is our minutes from the May 27th.
I think we should praise our chairman as one of her chief accomplishments during her term.
Eliminate task forces. Yes, this is our downsizing. So the minutes of the May 27th special board meeting.
Could we approve both of them at the same time?
I think we can.
Okay, I'd like to move approval of the May 27th meeting and the June 1st meeting.
Support.
Okay. Any discussion, correction to any of the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. Next, our subcommittee report. So we'll start with our Bricks and Money Committee. And Roger or John, do you have a preference for who goes first?
I'll go first.
We'll have Roger go first.
And I'll be extremely brief today, fortunately. If you turn, I think, to the last page, page 12, is the monthly parking report. Nothing particularly dramatic. Revenues overall were up 6.35%, which is approximately what the price increase reflects, the price increase that went in over the previous year. Hourly patrons are just about flat. A few specifics on the, we're winding down the First and Washington lot because of the anticipated construction by the Village Green organization, the apartment there. The Fifth and William lot, the former Y lot, is down somewhat due to the closing of Studio 4 across the street and some construction-related issues, but nothing particularly dramatic. One of the questions that we are always asked is the usage of the system going up or down? And as everybody knows, in the last few years we spent a lot of effort and resources to upgrade our software, our IT work in the parking system and with new equipment, and we are now able to capture an enormous amount of data that we were never able to capture before, and we have charged Joe and Republic Parking with coming back with some reports to us to try and actually get an idea of what the actual occupancy of the system is. And we were trying to figure out exactly how do you determine how to measure. I think we labeled it car hours or something like that. But if you take all the spaces, at least in the attended structures and lots, how many of those spaces were full during a 24-hour period? So they went back and did a lot of mining of data and crunching of numbers, and we now, at least in our attended structures, the 5 attended structures and the 2 attended lots, we now actually have an overall occupancy. We don't have the numbers going back for more than about a year and a half, I guess, but we're trying to get more of that. But I guess the good news on that is, yes, occupancy has actually gone up over the last 5 months versus the same 5 months a year ago. We are also trying to get some more data on, we looked at, basically by occupancy, we mean over a 24-hour period during the 6 days a week that the structures are open. How often were those, what percentage of those were filled? And we were about 35.4% a year ago, and we're up about, I think, 37.5% now. So we've seen about a 1.5% increase in the actual usage or number of cars in the parking system, at least the attended part of the parking system. So we finally actually have a real measure of how much the system is being used. Is the actual use going up or down, not just the revenues? And as we get this developed more and look over a much longer period of time, we'll actually be able to gauge how close to capacity we are getting, and will be very useful as a management tool, particularly about being able to say, okay, well, this structure isn't getting nearly as much use as this structure is, so maybe we want to do some differential pricing to encourage people to move from one to another.
Could I have a quick question related to that?
Sure.
You know, Nelson Nygaard, in their studies, use certain metrics for measuring capacity. Is the information that Joe's able to generate now, can it correlate to their studies that we've heard percentages of?
Well, we are still in the very initial phases of this. So the next thing we've asked, and we'll see if they can come up with, is what's the occupancy in these structures and lots between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. In other words, what's the occupancy during the peak demand period? How close are we to capacity? We don't have those numbers yet. We're hoping we'll have those in a couple months. So yeah, when we get those numbers, then we'll have a pretty good idea of how, assuming we're able to get those, how close we actually are to capacity in those structures. And it's going to be a very useful tool as we move into the transportation demand management aspects of this. Where is the demand? Where is it growing? Where is it declining? Where's the overall demand? Any other questions about that? And we have charged staff with putting together the first year and subsequent year, but primarily the first year plan on how we are going to implement our parking demand management in anticipation of presenting that to City Council in October per the new parking agreement. And they will be coming back in the next month or two with a detailed plan for the upcoming year.
Roger, can you remind people about increases that are already taking place as a result of some parking rate increases that were put into effect a few years ago?
Revenue goes?
Right. Well, no, I mean, what are that? I mean, I think people always have questions of when rates are going to be raised, and I think a lot of, just to remind everyone about increases that have already been put into effect.
Yes. The next rate increase will be September 1st, and this was part of a series of annual rate increases that were proposed by the DDA and were accepted by City Council as part of the financing of the underground parking structure. So the next one will be September 1st in the range of around 5% increase. Varies a little bit, but in that general range. And Joe, I'm not sure, is there one the following year, a year from this September?
No,
this is the last scheduled rate increase. So undoubtedly part of our presentation to council in the fall will be what we anticipate with doing with rates a year from now.
Okay, thank you. Is that it for you, Roger?
That's all I've got.
Okay, very good. Now, John.
Okay, on our two projects, first the status of the 5th and Division project. Over the last month, Eastland's been working on Division Street. They have poured a couple of crosswalks on Catherine and Ann Street, and have completed brickwork. I actually, walking by today, I see that they still have some more brickwork to do over there. They're getting close to completion of brickwork. They are currently on 5th Avenue, just south of us, working on the 200 South 5th Ave block, and they will be, they poured the curbs on the east side today. They will have that side of the street done prior to Art Fair, and then we'll move over to the west side of the street after Art Fair and be there for a short period of time. And that they're basically working on 5th right behind the water main work that's taking place, and that will pretty much tie up their end of the project, I believe. Chrisman will be doing the block, the 300 block of South 5th Avenue later. On the South 5th Avenue underground garage, on the dogleg, the east part, they are basically starting to do some mechanical work. They will begin doing some finish work on the top of that part of the deck, and the earth retention system the top of the earth retention system is being removed from that part of the deck because the walls have been poured, and essentially the earth retention system is no longer needed. So Hardman is currently removing the top 2 or 3 feet of the retention system in that area. Deck slabs are being poured in phase 2, the middle section. They've poured 3 of those since my last report. They are almost up to ground level on those pours, and those will continue into next month. On phase 3, the truly exciting news is that the final foundations have been poured in phase 3. They did it in 2 pours at approximately 2,200 cubic yards apiece. That allowed us to turn off the dewatering system,
Yes.
which was a challenge in the beginning. And so the forced water main that ran from the project site up to State Street and down to the river has been removed, and that part of the project is complete. And Adrian, as far as I know, we haven't seen water levels coming up any higher than expected?
Not whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. So again, to remind everyone, the dewatering was only necessary because we had water levels in the areas of footings, but the water will never actually have to be removed from the main portion of the deck except where elevator shafts are. So again, dewatering is complete. And that's basically all I have for the time being. Anybody have any questions?
I think John does.
John?
Obviously, we're at this great threshold now where, shell the building in place, foundations, no more dewatering. Can you tell us if Chrisman's now looking at opportunities to advance the schedule? Obviously we have folks here who are keenly interested in it, and if it's a point at which they can look at their schedule a little bit more carefully.
We meet, obviously our design team is working with Chrisman all the time, but we meet weekly for a breakfast meeting where we are updated on schedule. And yes, we are constantly trying to push the schedule so that we can get as much of this done as quickly as possible. And yes, it is a weekly, if not daily, point of emphasis.
Maybe they may be at a point now where they could feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and again, they are working overtime. They're getting things done. Obviously, concrete only cures so fast. There are limitations as to how much it can be pushed, but everybody's doing everything possible to get it completed as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Our next committee meeting is Wednesday, July 27th at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Next, the Economic Development and Communication Committee, and I'll report on that. We were talking in our last meeting about retail recruitment, and so we had invited Mike Gerard from Swisher and Ed Schaffern from the Schaffern Companies to help us look at what the DDA's role can be with downtown retail recruitment. We learned from them that there's really a lot the DDA has already done, and Mike Gerard in particular mentioned that making all of these infrastructure improvements has a huge impact on their being able to recruit business to the downtown. In terms of actually going out and helping with specific retailers, both of them agreed that there might not be a lot the DDA can do without really stepping on toes because of kind of the way things work. There are a lot of different property owners who have different agendas, who have different requirements for their properties. Different areas of town attract different businesses. There are already a lot of knowledgeable brokers involved, and so it doesn't really make sense for the DDA to, in effect, become another kind of broker. And offering incentives can be a slippery slope because you have to offer things equally to people and not be perceived to be favoring anyone. They suggest that the DDA could help with promotion of the downtown, and that's something that we have been working on a lot anyway. And kind of getting Ann Arbor on the broker map nationally so that people will think about coming here as development of materials for trade publications, maybe attending some conventions, and that sort of thing. They answered some of our questions about vacancy and turnover in the downtown and says, it happens due to timing, businesses expanding, and some closing. They gave examples that on State, East Liberty, and South U, there is very little availability and never very long lag time, so that when we do see businesses close, that it's not very long before businesses come along. And these brokers said that they always have people who are waiting, who are anxious for space. One of the things that they mentioned was the need for larger floor plates, and we've heard this before. We heard this from Spark, that the companies that need a larger area, that's the one thing that we don't have is a larger floor plate. The other thing they mentioned is also something that we've heard before, is that one impediment is the problems that developers may have with getting their projects through, that there may be roadblocks in their way, delays in the whole process and getting the project through all of the regulatory things that they have to do. So that was a lot of useful information, and information that we can again take in all of this kind of listening that we're doing to digest about how we can better increase our work in economic development in the downtown. The other part of our meeting this time was about the communication aspect, and we talked about our DDA annual report. There is a draft of the report that we have. I have one here, and I think some of you have been given. We have a few other copies. We're printing them out. And so I'd appreciate your looking those over when you have a chance, making any suggestions that you might have. The first half of the report deals with the impact of the DDA. It has a lot of statistics, the yearly DDA efforts to meet the goals of all of our renewal plans, and the long-term impact of property values, something that you can see, for instance, on page 7 of the report. It shows the huge increase in average building permit value in the downtown as compared with other areas of Ann Arbor. So the DDA has had a huge impact in the downtown, and we are quantifying that in this report. It will be very obvious to people. The other part of the annual report will just focus on the downtown and the current land uses and what the businesses are, the level of activity that contributes to the vibrancy of downtown, the amenities that there are in the downtown. So this annual report is both a statistical analysis but also a promotion document for the downtown. And so I think it's going to be a real boon to us in promoting the downtown and getting the word out about what we're doing. And Amber Miller, whom we always speak of in glowing terms, is glowing even more and really putting this together. So, again, I urge all of you to look at that, take it with you, and give us any comments that you might have about stuff we can add to the annual report. Our next committee meeting is Wednesday, July 27th at 9 a.m. So next we have the Partnerships Committee, and we have Russ Collins here to report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The Energy Saving Grant Program, it continues, and this year we have $100,000 to allocate towards that program. $20,000 of it will be given towards the Phase 1 assessment phase of the Energy Grant Saving Program. And we're going to be targeting larger buildings this year because there's another program called PACE that actually is run through the city that will allow special kind of financing for large-scale energy improvements and larger-scale buildings. There will be $80,000 in the Phase 2, which is actually to make improvements. And these are going to be directed more towards smaller businesses or smaller projects. There's going to be a limit of a $5,000 expenditure for any one project. And this is in recognition of a reduced budget. This budget was literally cut in half from previous years based on the rather thin budget that the DDA is working on now for the next few years. The majority of our meeting was talking about the City of Ann Arbor's charge to come up with planning and an implementation process for the use of city-owned properties as they will meet community goals. So we're looking to be the sounding board, the DDA, and this committee, the Partnerships Committee in particular, the sounding board for assessing what's the right thing to do with some of the properties that are vacant in the downtown area. Most particularly, what might be beneficial to go on top of the parking structure, what would be beneficial to go on the former site of the Y building down on Williams Street, what might be a good use for the Klein's lot and for the parking lot that's right next to Polio's on the corner of Williams and Main. So those are the parcels that are in the discussion. They're up on the walls here. And there was a lot of interesting discussion about that. Again, we aren't making decisions. We're figuring out how to create the best possible community dialogue and to create a forward movement on this. And we're doing this at the behest of City Council. Peter Allen, who's here today, has volunteered a great deal of time and his professional expertise in soliciting the neighbors and trying to get some sense of what the community as it's affected immediately around that area. And he said that the development success contains at least three dynamics: economic growth that requires market research, and political approval is necessary to make a project work. There are some strength in the stakeholders around the library lot and in that neighborhood or in those properties. Those strengths are that the location is a central location. The underground parking structure is a strength when it's completed. Right now it's just a pain. And the infrastructure improvements that are being made in association with the parking structure construction. There's a unique tenant mix on the block, which is also a strength. And we're assuming that there's going to be a strong economic cycle that's emerging out of the rather difficult economic cycle that we have been in, and maybe still are, depending on how many European countries go bankrupt and whether the Congress can actually lift the debt ceiling. The weaknesses of this opportunity, again, as articulated by Peter Allen, who we thank for all of your hard work on this, is the need to overcome the track record of a request for proposal system that has been used by the city and the DDA, which tends to just say, hey, tell us what you want to do here. It doesn't give enough direction, and so we get proposals that sometimes are just immediately rejected out of hand by citizens, or it just confuses developers. So providing developers a little more direction in terms of what the community wants, what the community will accept, will be beneficial. And then obviously the larger issue is that it's a very tight financial market right now, so it's difficult for developers to get money. Lastly, Peter shared his vision for the area, which involves a connectivity with all of the surrounding assets: the river, the library, the various retail districts, the Allen Creek Greenway, and the AATA. Those are resources that are available, but if we can tie all of these pieces together, it could be a very appealing way to frame that opportunity and get participation from developers and the community as we get that dialogue going. We were also lucky to have Albert Perez from McKinley. He's the CEO of McKinley. And he cautioned the group to focus on realistic opportunities. And there's a lot of ways that Ann Arborites and citizens and community boards can dream about stuff that might want to happen. But we also need to think very seriously about the fact that developers who can do things are well capitalized and they're willing to invest their money to make projects happen. And they also have the resources to do that. I know at the DDA, we had a very nice and long discussion with a group that wanted to do something on the library lot. I'm sorry, on the Y lot, and they never had the proper capitalization. So we spent a lot of time talking to them. They spent a lot of time developing plans, and the whole thing fell apart because it just was never properly capitalized. So Albert Perez's point is to make sure that when we're talking to people that we do our due diligence and make sure that they actually have the financial resources to do what they say it is that they want to do. Developers are willing to make a shared vision, are willing to take the shared vision in Ann Arbor And the DDA should get developers involved throughout the process as we look to develop these things in a serious way. Albert also mentioned that the DDA had done a great job of encouraging reinvestment so far, using the energy grants as an example. That seems to be our universally good thing that we do at the Partnership Committee. Jesse Bernstein also came in. He's the chair of the AATA. He's a community volunteer and a great guy. He also wanted, he said, and the committee agreed, that the process that the AATA went through as they sought community input was very valuable. And he wanted us to make sure that we understood the difference between consensus and compromise. Consensus is almost impossible to get everybody to agree exactly what needs to be done. But compromise can be a good thing. It means that everybody doesn't get what they want, but the outcome usually means that everybody can accept and live with the outcome that's there. Some can't, but again, understanding the difference between consensus and compromise is extremely important as a community and for this body. Doug Kelball and Kit McCullough also came. They're from the University of Michigan. Their services are available for us to hire as consultants. They suggested a 3-phase process: a data gathering phase, a public meeting phase, and a presentation phase. We were very grateful for their presentation. However, at that time we felt, and I'm sure you feel at the present time, rather overwhelmed with all of the information and opportunity that's there. So we took a step back, and so consequently our next meeting, which will be on July 13th, will be exclusively devoted to how to move forward with this progress, how to collect public input effectively, and how to begin shaping the facilitation and planning process. Sandy Smith is unavailable for that meeting. I will be out of town for that meeting, and so John Moat has, because he blew off the Transportation Committee, is for this month, is graciously agreed to chair that meeting. And as an architect and someone who is vitally involved in this discussion, I think that you're in even better hands than you would be if Sandy or I were there. So that's way too much information on the Partnerships Committee.
Never too much information. Thank you. Any questions for us before we move on? Thank you, Ross. Next, our Transportation Committee. John.
Thanks. Following up on Nancy's presentation about the Go Pass, I want to talk briefly about Get Downtown. Folks have been hearing about the need for them to find a home, and that those conversations are still ongoing. Just to quickly recap, the history had been, they started with the Chamber, right now are with the AATA, and looking at the possibility of coming to be part of the DDA. The advantages, as we've talked about it, include some that we've already talked about. There's a tie to economic development, a tool for looking at transportation and TDM, the communications piece of how that could help us. So I think there's some nice synergies between the organizations, not the least of which is the fact that they're both downtown focused. So there's some things that are a nice fit. The other thing I want to remind everyone about too is from the funding perspective, if Get Downtown is part of DDA, it would still allow for the AATA to provide funding via the CMAQ contribution, and it's interesting to know that apparently from AATA's perspective, it almost would be helpful for Get Downtown to not be a part of the AATA for that purpose. That bit of separation for getting the CMAQ grants is actually a positive thing rather than a negative thing. And essentially the funding would go on as it has in the past between AATA, CMAQ, DDA, and the city. The way it would impact us would be Joe would be involved in the bookkeeping end of it. Susan would be doing employee annual reviews, and Nancy and Maura would technically become DDA employees. That's kind of its sort of simplest thing. Question for folks here is, do people have any specific information they
want on this issue, and this as we try to head towards making a. Nancy, can you tell us actually when are you targeting having this tied up and
I mean, there isn't
resolved?
a hard and fast.
Please come to the microphone so
Sure.
the cameras can see.
Yes. There isn't any hard and fast deadline. I think by the end of the year would probably be preferable, just so we can wrap it up by the end of the calendar year.
I mean, for one, it's been talked about for a long time now, so it seems as though, to me, it seems time in this next few months. I would think in the early fall to really try to make something happen.
Yeah, I think that it's being brought up at this meeting, so we can try to move it forward, since you're not going to have a August meeting. Yeah, Bob.
Do we know the position of our partners on this issue?
Yeah, all the partners are comfortable with it. We've been talking about it in our advisory board meetings, so everybody is comfortable with that at that level.
Comfortable
With transitioning to the DDA, yes.
John, would you explain where the money is? Although Nancy would become a DDA employee, could you explain where the money is coming from to pay her salary?
Well, actually, why don't we
Yes, all of that, all of the
describe it
funding
better.
for salaries and benefits comes from the congestion mitigation air quality grant passed through to the ATA. There's no additional cost to the DDA other than what the DDA has already put aside for Get Downtown funding for the next 2 years. So there's no additional funds.
And essentially, as I mentioned, the notion or the hope is too that it could actually strengthen the position for the CMAQ funding.
Where would Nancy live?
I do have offices currently, and we don't have any plan to move those offices. The idea is not that we're going to be housed here, as in we have offices here, but that we'll still stay at our present location unless there's another location that makes more sense.
But I would suggest as we move forward, again, thinking about it in terms of sort of marketing and visibility with the community, it's something that we can think through together as time goes on for both organizations.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
So if anybody has any specific questions, so why don't you feed them to Susan, maybe would be the best way to go about doing it. As far as project updates, a few quick things. The carrot, apple, and cherry bike racks are being painted at this very moment and will soon be ready to be installed at the farmers market. Amber tells me they're just beautiful. The bike hoop use counts are being conducted, and the new and replacement hoops will be going in early in August. The trip hazard work on Main Street has been completed now, is that right? So it's ready for Art Fair and all the rest of the summer festivals. The plans are still evolving for dealing with the trip hazards and lighting repairs in the area down on Huron Rail area. So we're still collecting information on that. And the night ride has now been expanded to east to Gulfside. It had been at Carpenter Road, now it's been expanded east to Gulfside to capture hopefully a lot more people in those areas. A lot of folks live in that belt, walking distance of Gulfside. So that's another one of those things that as we can move forward and collect more information about the success of these programs, that it's part of the whole big transportation picture to see what works well. So those are my updates. Obviously, Russ already stole the thunder that we're going to go ahead and cancel the Transportation Committee this month in July, so hope to have a good turnout for the Partnerships Committee on that same day at 9 o'clock.
Thank you, John.
Any questions for me?
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other DDA business matters. Is there anything else? Susan, is there anything we need to bring up? Okay. I want to remind everybody that we will adjourn and then right away start in with our annual meeting. So don't get too happy about adjourning when we adjourn. Is there any other audience participation? Anyone who wants to address us for 4 minutes? Okay, seeing no one, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
John Lowenstein?
Here.
John Mowatt?
Here.
Keith Orr?
Here.
Sandy Smith?
John Split.
Here.
We have a quorum. We don't have audience participation listed on here, and I don't believe that we do have it for our annual meeting. So our main job for the annual meeting is to have the nomination and election of our DDA board officers. The officers that we need to elect are treasurer, secretary, vice chair, and chair. So we will start with the treasurer. So,
That's what I suggested doing it the opposite way.
oh, we were going to do it the opposite way. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought that we had that in the right order. Okay, never mind. So we will start then with the chair. And I will open up the floor for nominations for chair. Roger.
Nominate Gary Bourne.
Okay, Gary,
I'll second.
seconded. Any?
Do we need a second? We don't need a second. Yeah.
I think we do.
Correct.
I think we do. Are there any other nominations?
Move a unanimous ballot for Gary Boren as chair of the DDA.
Support.
Okay,
Is Gary's term renewed?
we don't know that yet.
Okay.
All in favor of unanimous ballot?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, our new chair will be Gary Boren, who this year was currently our vice chair. So the next nomination will be for vice chair. Please.
I'd like to nominate Bob Gunzel for vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Is there a motion similar to Lee's?
Move a unanimous ballot for Bob Gunzel.
Okay. Can we have a second for that?
Second.
All right, all in favor of Bob Gunzel for vice chair?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll have Bob, congratulations, as vice chair. Next, we'll have nominations for secretary. John?
I nominate Keith Orr.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
Unanimous ballot.
We might as well vote. It'll probably be that way
All in
anyway.
Shortens
Yeah.
the process.
Yes, all in favor of Keith for secretary? Aye. Opposed? All right, Keith will be our secretary. And for treasurer, the last officer, any nominations? John?
I'll nominate Roger Hewitt to stay on.
I'll second the motion.
All right, Roger, treasurer for life, Roger. Any other nominations? All right, all in favor of Roger Hewitt for treasurer?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Roger.
All right.
That was treasurer, that was for life.
That was treasurer for life.
That was the nomination.
It wasn't for life.
Unfortunately, we'd have to amend our bylaws, and that would make our meeting a lot longer if we did, but.
Oh, what a killjoy.
Yeah. So the next question that comes up at our annual meeting is our DDA committees. And the question is whether we want to merge our committees for this year, partly because of funding issues, but also because if we have these two meetings going back to back as we have, people who want to attend both meetings, that's at least a 4-hour commitment. And even with a free lunch, that makes it rather dire for most people. So we can look at merging or eliminating or otherwise doing things.
I have an idea.
Do you have an idea, John?
I would suggest, and I would like the current chair of the Transportation Committee's input on this, but merging transportation into bricks and money, and perhaps renaming bricks and money into something like capital improvements and operations, more as it used to be. But transportation...
Bricks, money, and go.
And go. Transportation is currently dealing a lot with the Go Pass program, which is a transportation demand management tool. It fits nicely also with pedestrian capital improvements. So I think that
And
it would...
the parking management
Yeah,
goes in with the
we're covering a lot of the
transit.
same material, and I think it would, if we're going to downsize, that might be a good way to go.
And
You're
I
right.
agree. I think it would be a good idea because I think a lot of things too in transportation, I think we've done a pretty good job of getting some things kind of up and going and sort of on a steady pace. So in terms of sort of committee involvement, I think it would make sense to me.
Okay, so is that a motion to do that?
So moved.
I will support
Go.
Bob's motion.
Okay, now we can have discussion.
Just discussion. Let's find a name.
I suggest that we not find it now because that's, I think, how we came up with Bricks and Money.
Later. Okay.
All right.
We're gonna
But
Give
not,
ourselves
not too
time
much
to-
later, not in the wrong, yeah, not.
Yeah, give
Okay.
ourselves time to think about it.
All
Yeah,
right.
Keith?
We could
Two
do
things. One, it could be that committee's first task is to name itself. Second, I think it does work out well because then we could do the 3 Wednesdays with a committee meeting each Wednesday at 9 o'clock, and it makes it easier for more people to participate in
Or at
all the
11.
different meetings. And that way, there's never a back-to-back meeting also, which means that if there is something where, because there's a big thing involving both construction and transportation one month, it's not like you're running up against another committee.
Yeah, I find it hard to take a whole morning off.
Right.
So when they're back-to-back meetings, it's just tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
Okay. All in favor of merging the transportation in with Bricks and Money and eventually coming up with a new name?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll have that. Any other committee waist tightening or other kind of shrinkage of committees? Yeah, John?
I was looking at them and trying to think about this and was looking at partnerships and economic development and communication. The partnership is a fairly, there's a component of that is about communication. And economic development as well. I noticed that partnerships was looking at facilitating planning for lot development, which carries over into economic development, and I just throw that out there as an idea for discussion.
I think that makes a lot of sense because partnerships really should be part of, if they're assigned to looking at all those lots, economic development folds right into that. And also, you could include the people who are on city council. I think we used to have a planning commissioner. It would be sort of the idea committee. Remember we used to have research and something or other?
Right.
This kind of thing.
Rock.
Because partnerships doesn't really describe what they're doing anymore. So I would move that we combine partnerships with economic development and find a new name.
Now, keep in mind, economic development was part of that committee. The intent of getting the communications aspect was we acknowledged that we were relatively deficient in getting the message out that we wanted to, or at least in terms of how it was being read. So one of the goals of that committee was to bring in members of the community, professionals, give them a seat at the table that could help us with our communications goal. Now, I'm not saying we couldn't do that with a combined thing, but if we've got, good media people, PR people at the same table with, our partners at the city, at the ATA, does that go does it divide our attentions relative? I don't want because communication is so new, because we recognize it as a deficiency, we knew it was something we had to work on. I don't want us to fold around that just because it's new and it hasn't had time to fully develop and bring the resources to the table that we were hoping to do with the committee.
I guess my point is the more resources we have, the better it'll work.
Okay. But just as a point of order.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, just second.
Yeah, so it's been seconded. Yeah, Russ, did you have a comment about?
Yes, now that we can discuss it. Even though Newcomb's comments were totally rogue because there was not a second.
I didn't realize she was making a motion, though. I thought she was just making a suggestion.
And I'm just jabbing you in the side. Because I totally agree. It may be appropriate to drop economic development as a title for that committee, but the communications part was pulled out because we saw that we had a deficiency in that area. I don't know whether that deficiency has been addressed in any substantive way, with the communications committee. But it still remains a deficiency. So if we want to acknowledge that the economic development part, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if that means exploring the city council resolution to suggest a way forward on the city-owned lots, then that might be that part of it.
John?
And I would agree also. My concern is that I felt that participation at that particular committee has been a bit lacking. So if in fact people feel strongly about this being an area where we need to continue to focus, I would suggest that if we don't break up the committees, that we get more people showing up at the committee meeting.
Here, practical point.
Yeah, John?
I was just going to note that those are very good comments about communication, but there wasn't, when I threw the idea out, there wasn't any intention that any of these things would fall away. Just they would still have, they just perhaps to do communication, you don't need a freestanding committee. It could be incorporated in with other goals, with partnerships, economic development, and communication was a suggestion. That those would all be worked on, and given that you have about the same membership anyway, it just seems easier to have one meeting instead of two.
Yeah, I tend to agree, just because there has been very sparse attendance at our at those meetings, and it would be nice to bring everybody together and have and it is all really towards the same goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think Newcomb's point's well taken. We don't want to lose communication, but I think it can be subsumed under that single committee. And I think it'll add to the vitality of the economic development discussion and the partnership that we have with the city and with others in the downtown area.
Yeah, John?
I'd be interested to hear if Susan has any thoughts about the committee structure.
Well, I'm listening and agreeing with everything that you're saying. I think that as volunteers, I want to be able to make sure that your volunteer experience is as productive as possible. And having a chance to have you all together at the table to talk about these things makes it that much more productive. I completely resonate with the need to not drop communication. That's absolutely a nascent part of what we're doing, and I think that annual report is just a small example of the things that we need to continue to work on, to be able to share what we're doing so people feel comfortable that they know a lot more about the DDA than they do currently, and also about the downtown. So I would completely support the motion on the table to combine those two committees, and as staff, we'll do our best to make sure we don't lose any element of it and make it lose any kind of focus, that we would make sure things like communication stay front and center with the work plan.
Given that we're a volunteer organization, do you see some difficulties in getting someone that's perhaps great at social media to sit through a meeting where we talk about the intricacies of planning, staff planning, commission and stuff? Or do you see people, City Hall has got a message. We have a message, and hopefully they're in line all the time, but we also know that sometimes they're not. And I want to be cognizant of the reason we did this. The reason that for over a year we had a communications job opening, because we knew this was a problem. And if you feel that staff can really kind of figure out a way to continue to address that deficiency, given that we're going to have a now group that has a lot of people to the table that have their own messaging ideas, that I'm okay with it as long as you're in front of that concern.
I'm not only in front of it, I'm absolutely seeing the lot redevelopment as a very good example of how we need to put communication front and center to our work plan. So if we're going to have a robust public engagement plan, social media, focus group discussions, I mean, all of the things that happen as a part of getting input from the community about that planning process are also things we need to be doing as a DDA to get input about the other projects that we're doing. So in a way, I think it's a way to get ourselves organized around communication with an actual project and build everything from our Facebook presence to communication on our website and how people are reaching us and what information they're looking for. I think that that's just one example why merging the two committees might be a very good idea.
Yeah, I tend to agree on all of that. partly because of the attendance issue, is if we consolidate and we have more people attending, we're going to get a lot more voices as well. And we can also take the opportunity, I kind of learned from how we've been doing this Economic Development Committee, is each one focuses on a particular thing. We can do that with partnerships too, and take one meeting to really focus on the communications aspect or focus on the lot redevelopment, whatever it is. Yeah.
I think one of the things about the attendance issues goes back to that idea of the back-to-back meetings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know I have to pick one or the other. I just simply can't do both.
Do it
and as I talk to our fellow board members, that seems to be a pretty common element. So to me, I like the idea of leaving communications as a separate committee for the time being, to see if having it on a different day allows more participation in that sense, as opposed to more participation just because we have one less committee. But rather, we're having less committee meetings on any given day. Because I think most of us already recognize Wednesday is, at least a portion of the day, is our DDA day.
Did you have something, John?
I was just going to say, I think in terms of both the Transportation and Economic Development Committees, that they were both new committees, and I think that they did a very good job. If in fact we do end up combining both, we had a lot of material to go through and a lot of groundwork to do in both areas, and I think that the committees accomplished those things, and perhaps now that we have things honed down a bit, that we can combine committees.
Okay, any more discussion? I think the motion on the table is to combine the economic development and communication with partnerstions.
Yes.
Also.
And come up with a new name.
And come up with a new name eventually, right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought I heard from what Keith was saying. Keith, were you thinking communications would be a third committee still? Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure we're all on the same. I just want
to clarify what I'm saying. I'll be voting no on this because I think they should continue to be separate.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I understood that. Okay. All in favor of combining?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
It passed, you won.
Okay. I couldn't tell exactly who's voting. All right, so we will combine the committees.
What does that mean for the June meeting? Or, I'm sorry,
July meeting.
What does that mean for the July meeting? Well, we have, next week, we were going to have partnerships.
Yeah, that's a very important meeting.
Yeah, well, yes. That partnerships committee meeting was going to be really devoted to just one topic anyway. And then on the 27th, so I mean, what we could do is not have the economic development meeting on the 27th.
Perhaps we could start the new structure in September.
Right.
Or start that in September? Okay, so have the meetings as we had announced and then start the new structure. I think that's a good idea.
Joan, do we assume the August committee meetings are canceled because the board meeting is canceled?
Is that how we've done in the past, Susan?
We've done it all sorts of ways. It really depends on what the workload is in front of us. I mean, as an example, I might need you guys to come together to talk about communication. If we're going to be getting some good input on partnership ideas for that lot redevelopment, it may need to follow with a meeting to talk about what are the tools that we could use, what are the best ways to do it. So if you don't mind being flexible at the moment, let's not worry about August. Let's sort of focus on kind of what's in front of us and find out what comes out of partnerships next week. I know certainly operations tends to continue its work through the summer as they're keeping an eye on our budget and finance. So if we can sort of remain a little bit flexible.
So do you think we should meet on the 27th?
Well,
in terms of economic development?
what I would recommend is that we do meet and that we focus maybe exclusively on communication. That would be helpful to us, I think, following the partnerships meeting. Mm-hmm. So if we have strategies, that might be a place where we come to you and say, okay, here are these ideas. Now, what's the best way that we can to build on that, if that feels comfortable?
Or to complicate things, we can meet on the 20th and have 3 separate meetings.
You could do that too. But at the moment, let's keep it.
I'm doing it.
And then we'll have a clean slate. We'll start all over again, I think, with the new structure in September. I think that would make sense for all of us.
Yeah. John.
Actually, since most of us are here and this next partnerships meeting is going to be important and the two chairs are going to be gone, I'd be curious to have a bit of a straw poll to make sure, and it's the summer, you know, are people in general going to be available on July 13th as we're talking about dates and so forth?
I will be.
I won't be.
Did you say?
I will not be.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
But I can
Okay.
meet some other time if that's better for you.
Okay.
The 20th or the 27th.
It's always better when the two chairs aren't there anyhow.
I'm offended by that.
I was hoping you would be.
I don't mean to complicate things, but if we're talking about dates and shuffling and all, and I just throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people would even be available if we did it on the 20th. That's art fair.
Well, that's true. I think we're pondering too much.
Yeah, it might be. It could be that the whole summer is going to be bad for somebody.
Could be.
John's evil plan to take over everything is in place. Don't mess with
I was trying to get out of it.
All right, so we'll just have we'll have all the committee meetings as scheduled and start with our new arrangement starting in September and leave August flexible. All right.
Set transportation, don't forget, cancel that one. Cancel.
Oh yeah, transportation is canceled no matter what. Okay. All right. So we will be this will be a turning over of the gavel.
Not yet.
Not yet.
One more item on the agenda, which is the staff thinking.
There was the staff thing.
You can't forget that part.
You're not going to get out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get out of it. Keep the gavel. Every year, at the end of the year, this is a chance for the DDA staff, and I am speaking for all of us to say thank you. This has been one of the most extraordinary years in my time here. I am finishing 15 years.
One way to put it.
Yeah. And I can't tell you, this is probably, this 1 year, you know how 1 year in a dog's life is 7 years? This was a 7-year year for us. And all of you rose to the challenge. I don't know that we could have done this, and including Adrian and Nancy and all of us, I don't think that we could have done what we needed to do this year if we didn't have the extraordinary board that we have. When we needed you, you were there, and you gave us your best, you gave us your ideas, you gave us your time, and most of all, you gave your passion to downtown, and we're very, very grateful. And I think the community would support me on that you do an amazing job, and you're really the unsung heroes. So to all of you, for the endless hours, for the hardship that some of you went through, for, again, creative thinking, I really want to thank you. This is also a chance for me to say thank you to the outgoing chair, and it's become a tradition that the staff provide a gift to the outgoing chair. And I think we all remember John received his, and so it's only right that you receive yours this year. As we thought about what we could do as a small thank you for the endless hours, Joan, and you were there every minute, including when I was away on my leave. Joan was in my living room. I mean, there was not a time when Joan wasn't being chair this year, and she did just a fabulous job. But I thought of you and came to thinking about the absolutely beloved Elizabeth Taylor and her passing this year. And so it seemed only right that we remembered you with a piece of jewelry. And as you get your gift, I think you're going to understand a little bit about what your piece of jewelry is and about Elizabeth Taylor. There's two pieces. The first piece is the obvious one, and the second one is to let you know that she was never done collecting. So as you open this gift, you'll...
All right. Is this the first one?
That's the one.
All right.
The rest is to suggest the rest of your collection. So it looks official, doesn't it?
Wow. Oh, wow, this is great. It's a giant rock.
It is a rock. As only Elizabeth would love it.
Wonderful.
From the construction site. This is part of the gravel. I thought, in keeping with Elizabeth, you would have a rock that other people would want. It was either that or a ring, and I didn't think your hand could get off the table.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. This is something like some geologist could talk about how the glaciers over the millions of years, formed this and
That's
plunked
right.
it right at our parking garage.
Absolutely.
You could whip it off your neck, whirl it around, and whack someone in the head.
Right.
That could be David and Goliath, which then leads to how you then extend your collection.
All right.
There's more of them.
This is rather heavy also.
We emptied out the construction site, and part of it is because it's now going to sit in your jewelry box, yeah.
Okay.
More gravel than you could ever know
More
what to do
gravel.
with.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
have to find a good way of, this looks a little bit like the little poopy bags that.
Yeah, it does have that look, doesn't it?
But
Yeah.
I can tell that it does have.
It's got some solid weight to
Sling
it.
that David used to kill Goliath.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. It also has a
Get your
sling.
dog a new
Yeah,
dog.
that's right.
Right.
That's
yeah.
right.
So I'll thank you very much for this. I'll
Well,
have
thank
to
you.
kind of expand some of my pockets to be able to carry this. Well, looks like it works.
It does kind of work.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
right.
if you
That's
bury
right.
those long enough, they'll become diamonds someday. maybe.
Yes,
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that is those things under pressure become diamonds, and certainly
Yeah.
this was a year.
Has-
So thank you.
Thank
very,
you.
very much.
Thank you very much. I'll kind of put this.
That was
Thank you
amazing.
very much. Thank you. And so we will pass the gavel on to Gary.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Congratulations. Look forward to it. All right.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Support.
All for?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
You know, people are going to come up and ask you about